Welcome to our special edition of our Wednesday night Lighthouse Project class here in Aventura, Florida. All of you who came, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure you're going to be very happy that you came tonight. We have a very special topic about being the best parent, and everyone tuning in online and all the different broadcasts. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you soon. When you come to Florida, join us on a Wednesday night, Bezrat Hashem. Tonight's class is sponsored in memory of Devor Fega Bat Shmuel, and also for the Refuah Shlema, the speedy recovery of Menachem Mendel ben Sarah Batya, as well as the Refuah Shlema for Leah Bat Rachel. Do we have another one? Yeah, another? Oh, Bezrat Hashem. Okay. Bezrat Hashem. Big Refuah for everybody. This week's Torah portion is Parashat Emor. Emor in the Hebrew language means to say. Well, what is being said? I'll quote to you the first verse. I'm going to take you on a little bit of a tangent which you might think is completely unrelated, and we're going to tie it back up to one of the most practical lessons as a parent we all need to know. The verse says as follows: Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, and God says to Moses, Emor el HaKohanim, tell the Kohanim, Bnei Aharon, the children of Aaron, Ve'amarta alehem, tell them, Lenefesh lo yitama be'amav, that they should not become impure in contact with a dead body. Now it's very interesting for us to note. As Jews, God gave us 613 commandments. We know that there are positive commandments. We know that there are negative commandments. We know that not only God gave Moses and the Jewish people the Torah, but it also came with an oral Torah, an interpretation to that. Having said that, a person might say, wow, our religion is very restrictive. And in truth, there are many restrictions to our Torah. Living in this world, there are many restrictions. If we look at the 613, 248 of them are positive commandments, and 365 of them are negative. So there are a lot of negative restrictions that we have. But why do we have it that way? Well, before I answer that, if we think of a certain family, or if we think of a certain type of Jew, we can always think of Kohanim. Kohanim have it much more restricted than us. And some of their restrictions are part of not only the rest, like the rest of us, but also the fact that they're not allowed to become in contact with anything impure. When a Kohen becomes in contact with anything that is impure, in the time of the temple, in the time of the tabernacle, they were not able to fulfill their service. Again, a Kohen's life, role, and enthusiasm was their opportunity to serve God in the temple. Now that they were not able to do this, it was a very life-changing moment for them. So they had to wait to purify themselves with the red heifer, as well as going to a mikveh. It was a whole process. Now, having said that, a Kohen has many things that are restricted upon them. It's not only the fact that they're not allowed to become impure. However, the Midrash tells us in this week's Torah portion that Aaron was merited with a special gift. He was rewarded by God for the fear that he had. The fear of God that he had warranted him a reward, a very special reward from God. What is that reward? The reward is none other than this parasha, this week's Torah portion. And what exactly is it talking about? The very fact that a Kohen is not allowed to become impure with a dead body. That's the gift to Aaron, the gift to his children, and the gift to all of Aaron's descendants. That's the Midrash. So the Zera Shimshon right away says, what type of gift is that? A gift that they have a restriction that they're not allowed to become impure with the body. It would be much easier for a Kohen to be allowed to go to all funerals, to go to a cemetery, to go into a hospital, to visit someone when they know that a dead body is in there, which we know a Kohen is not supposed to. So, what type of gift is this? And that it would stand for generations, as the Midrash says? What exactly is going on? And furthermore, what does Aaron's fact that he feared God warrant him this merit? So we don't know what the merit is, that's number one. Number two, Number one is we don't understand what he did. He feared God, right? What he did to receive this. Now we don't even understand what the gift is. And on top of it all, this is only one of many of the commandments that apply for Kohanim as the years progressed. Meaning today, a Kohen is not allowed to marry a divorcee. Why isn't that the halacha or the gift given to Aaron forevermore? Also, a Kohen is not allowed to marry someone with a questionable lineage. Why specific? Out of the many halachot that was given to a Kohen, this was the one that they're not allowed to become impure with a dead body, the one which was given as a gift to Aaron. This is the question the Zera Shimshon asks, and listen to the answer he gives. He says something which we might have not paid attention to, but this is a fundamental, important piece of information that we might not have known. And that is, when the Jewish people were taken out of Egypt by God and given the Torah, at that moment, two things were taken out of the lexicon of the Jews. And that is, number one, death, and number two, impurity. That means that after the Jews received the Torah, after they were freed from their slavery and their bondage from Egypt, they could no more become impure. There was no such thing. And none of them would ever die. That's amazing, no? Everlasting life. However, something reversed that. Can anyone guess what that was? Obviously, the sin of the golden calf. The sin of the golden calf messed all that up. Now this sounds very familiar, and the Arizal, amongst others, draw this connection. If we remember when Adam was created, there was no death, and there was no impurity. But something changed that. Something messed it all up. It was eating from the tree of knowledge. Finally, 2,448 years later, when the Jewish people stand at the foot of Mount Sinai, they were now going back to the way it was before the sin of Adam. They were going pre-Yetzer Hara world. Remember, we've spoken about this, that before Adam sinned, the evil inclination, Yetzer Hara, was outside of the body. There was a temptation, but it was almost not a temptation. It was outside. Once they ate from the tree of knowledge, it became part and parcel of Adam's very being and soul, and so too to all of his descendants. It took 2,448 years to separate that again. And unfortunately, 40 days later, the sin of the golden calf reinstituted the concept of impurity and the concept of death again to the Jewish people. It's tragic. It was the unforgivable, yet God still forgave. Now comes, fast forward, Aaron is dejected, almost depressed. He is so sad that he was the conduit to allowing the Jews to worship another god. Comes a little time later, and now Moses tells his brother Aaron, you now are to bring the offerings and the sacrifices in the tabernacle. It's your position. And what was Aaron's response? Absolutely not. I can't do it. Why not? I already messed everybody up. How can I be the one who can now be the lawyer on behalf of everybody and the messenger on behalf of everybody? And Moses tells his brother, Aaron, God wants you. He doesn't want anyone else. He sees the regret. He sees the fear that you have. Literally, Aaron was scared to come close. He thought that he was going to be obliterated and destroyed on the spot. However, God read that sense that he had, that feeling of pain and sorrow and regret for what he did, and he chose him to be the messenger and to be the one. The Zera Shimshon says that both of these concepts, the concept of Aaron's very own fear, which was what he had and what he did, which merited him to have this parasha, this halacha of not allowing his children, his descendants, to become impure. Because they both stem from the same reason, the reason of the golden calf. It was the fact that the golden calf happened that impurity came back to this world. And it was the fact that the golden calf happened that Aaron had this tremendous amount of love and fear for God out of the regret and the remorse and these deep feelings that he had. He says that's the connection between the two. But now I ask you, what type of reward is it as a parent, as a grandparent, as an ancestor to say, you cannot become impure? It goes as follows. Zera Shimshon explains this in his most magnificent way. He says that the fact is today, ever since the last red hefter, that was the 9th, we're waiting for the 10th, out of world Jewish history, there will only be 10. The 10th one is going to come for the Mashiach, to purify all of Bnei Israel. And ever since the 9th, which was at the end of the second temple, we do not have the opportunity to be elevated to a level of complete holiness. So look how the Zera Shimshon makes this so beautiful. He says, isn't the Kohen impure anyways? Of course. Every Kohen has either on purpose or by mistake have come in contact either with a dead body or with someone who was in contact with a dead body. It's not possible not. So why would God tell Aaron that your future generations, your descendants, will not be allowed to become impure? What's the point? It's kind of like, so you already lost, what, you're going to lose again? You can't lose again. It's like when you're playing Lo Alenu V'Lo Alechem, a person's at playing poker or playing blackjack. If you lost all your chips, that's it, you're out. You walk away. Okay? If you already lost all your chips, if a person's already impure, so you have nothing more to lose. That's what Aaron thought. That was his thought process of what impurity had as a meaning for his family. God told him absolutely not. You want to know something very special? That the truth is that even though your children and your descendants as Kohanim will be impure, nevertheless they should avoid becoming impure again. Why? The Zera Shimshon says this is a proof that God stays with the Kohanim and with the Jewish people even in their impurity. We would think that when somebody is impure or somebody sins, someone does something horrible, that's it. God takes his Shekhinah and he lifts it up, resides it elsewhere. That's what Aaron thought. That's what we all would think. The Zera Shimshon says God is telling Moshe to tell Aaron that is not the case. The case is if you or any of your children or any one of Bnei Israel ever become impure, keep on aiming to avoid becoming impure again and again and again. Because God's there. God's there even in your impurity. God's there even when you are down, even when you're broken, even when you think everything is over. He is always there. And the Zera Shimshon says this makes perfect sense with the verse. Our verse is very repetitive, almost redundant for no reason. It says, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, tell Emor HaKohanim, tell the Kohanim, Bnei Aharon, the children of Aaron. All Kohanim are the children of Aaron. So why does the verse need to say, tell to the Kohanim, the children of Aaron? Right? Very redundant. And to the Zera Shimshon, the whole point of this law of impurity, how a Kohen should not become impure with a dead body, is specific for the Bnei Aharon, the children of Aaron, the descendants of Aaron forevermore. Never to give up, never to think it's too late, never to think that, okay, I'm impure anyway, so there's no point. Listen to a following true story. I was personally inspired beyond means this past Shabbat. Listen to the following. In 1906, there was a Jewish woman born, a Jewish baby, born in Philadelphia. Her name was Bessie Shane. And she was born to a completely unaffiliated Jewish family, unfortunately, like many American families back in the 1800s, or more specifically the 1900s. This is pre-war. And she grew up completely unaffiliated, not knowing anything. She knew she was Jewish, and that was it. At the age of 90 years old, her grandson Michael meets, who also is not so affiliated, meets a girl named Tzipora. These are all true names. And they get married, and they pledge to live a committed life to Torah and mitzvot. And they started growing and learning. At 90 years old, they come over to their grandmother, to Grandma Bessie, and they asked her, "Hey, have you ever lit Shabbat candles?" She said, "Absolutely not. It was something that maybe I heard of as in a fairy tale, but I never lit Shabbat candles." "Okay, let's light Shabbat candles together." And she lit. "Hey, did you ever keep a Shabbos?" "What does keeping Shabbos mean?" "Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. We rest, we eat, we have family time all together." "Oh, sounds good." She starts doing it. "Do you have, by any chance, a Hebrew name, Grandma?" She said no. So they gave her the name Batya, daughter of God. They named her at 90 years old. Do you know this idea of kosher food? You know, you need to look at the packages when you eat. You can't mix meat and milk. What are you talking about? They taught it to her. They taught her at the age of 90. I don't want to say it was overnight. It definitely wasn't. The Hebrew language. She knew nothing. She didn't know what an aleph looked like. She didn't know what a word meant. Nothing. This woman passed away in 2012, 3 weeks shy of her 106th birthday. And a person thinks, that's impossible. Do you know how hard it is to change a habit? Can you imagine living 90 years not caring what you eat, not caring what day of the week it is, not caring what your name is, lighting candles, not lighting candles? Who cares? A new language? Tell me a 90-year-old you know that learned a new language. It's not possible almost. And the lesson to us all is, it's never too late. You know that the sages always remind us about a certain character, a certain Talmudic character. Does anyone know who I have in mind? Oh, very good. It rhymes with your name. Rabbi Akiva did not start up as Rabbi Akiva. I'll tell you a hint. No rabbi starts up as Rabbi so-and-so, okay? He was 40 years old. He didn't know Aleph Bet. That's why I'm telling you a story, a modern story, so you see how it's a possible. 40 years old, he didn't know Aleph Bet. He knew nothing. He had the strongest, the most powerful asset in the world. Who knows what that was? His wife. His wife Rachel was a tzaddiket. His wife Rachel was the daughter of the wealthiest Jew around. And she left all of that. Do you know when she came home and told her father, you know, I want to marry the stable boy, Akiva? Her father said, you do it, I'm not coming to your wedding. You do it, consider yourself written off of me. And she did it. Because she saw the potential. She saw through his heart and his soul and the potential and the power that he had. And she suffered. She suffered for a long time until he came back with thousands of students. Where does that come from? That comes from confidence. Belief in yourself. If you think you cannot change, you will not change. If you think like you can change, you will change, even if you're 90 years old. I just proved it to you. First-hand witness. Change exists. It's not easy, it's hard work. I'll tell you something else about change before we come back to the kids. And this applies to kids, but more applies to one's spouse, or anyone else for that matter. The only person you could change is yourself. If you try to change your husband, if you try to change your wife, if you try to change your kids, it's never going to happen. The only thing that can change in your world, in your life, is yourself. It's the way you talk to others. It's the way you think about others. It's the things you do for others. It's the things you don't do. It's the way you talk to God. It's the way you involve God in your life. Or, God forbid, the way you shun Him out of your life. That's the only things that change in your life. Not your surrounding and not other people. This week, what I'm about to share with you is the greatest tool, the greatest way to be a great parent. Now, being a great parent is very hard. Those of us who are parents and those of us who have a little child or a couple little children do understand how it's not an easy task. Especially in the world that we live in, there's so many things to do. Our phones, God bless our phones, but we got to get rid of them sometimes. We don't give the attention to our children that they need. And when we don't give them the attention they need, they seek it elsewhere. But that's not what I'm going to talk about tonight. Let's go back to our verse. I'm going to talk about something more important. The verse says, and I'm quoting again the first verse, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, Emor el Kohanim, tell the Kohanim, which are Bnei Aharon. We explained why it's repetitive, okay? Ve'amarta lehem, and tell them that lenefesh lo itama be'ama, that they should not become impure to a dead body. The Talmud asks, why is there a need for the redundancy of tell the Kohanim and tell them the following? Emor ve'amarta. It's not like it's saying two different things. It's saying the exact same thing. It's one thing. The verse could have read, Moses is to tell Aaron the following. It doesn't say that. It says, Moses is to tell the Kohanim, the sons of Aaron, and tell them the following. Why the repetitiveness? The Talmud says, the reason why the verse is repeating itself, tell them and tell them again, is because once is to tell the parents, and the next is to tell the children. So on that, the commentaries ask, what does that mean? Tell the parent, tell the children. It doesn't seem like you need to tell like a tag team, tell two people. Just tell everybody. The same thing like the rest of our Torah. Isn't the rest of our Torah taught over to one person and then transmitted to the next? What changes over here? Our commentaries want to understand. That's question number one. Meaning it's not so apparent. Question number two is, this verse is actually the prime source of the mitzvah, the obligation of chinuch. Chinuch is child rearing, raising and educating our children in a proper, healthy, Torah, Jewish way. Our commentaries ask, out of our whole Torah, is the greatest example of chinuch to be learned from less than 10% of the Jewish population, the Kohanim? Why wouldn't it more make sense to maybe teach us the laws of chinuch, of raising and educating our children, by the holidays, by Shabbat, by Shema Yisrael, by Kashrut, something which is observed by the whole Jewish nation? No. The Torah teaches us the mitzvah of chinuch from an example of the Kohanim. Why is that? It's a good question. So let's answer the first of the redundancy and the repetitiveness of Emor ve'amarta. Say and say. What, to the parents, to the kids? Listen to the following. We all know how to fulfill mitzvot. For men, to put on a tzitzit, we know how to do that. We even know how to teach that to our sons. We know how to wrap tefillin. We know how to teach our sons how to wrap tefillin. For girls, lighting candles, making challah, taking the challah away, family purity, we know how to fulfill them. We know how to teach them to our children. But how do you inspire your child to do it? Why is it that so many people struggle to get their children to come to the synagogue. I'm not talking when they're little and they're running around. I'm not even talking when they're teenagers and there's too much more important things or tempting things in the world. I'm talking any other time than that, whether it's before, during, later. Why is it so hard for so many people to inspire their children to keep Shabbat, to eat kosher, even when they're out and traveling, to learn Torah? Wouldn't any parent love for their children to learn Torah? Imagine you come in the house and instead of you see your children, I'm talking any age, I'm talking 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years old, however old your children are, how happy would you be that they're not on video games or they're not on their phone and they open a Chumash and they're sitting and reading Ribono Shel Olam? How does that happen? You know it happens. It's not easy work. But how does that happen? How come does it happen for some kids, to some parents, and not to others? It's all based on how you inspire them. Your children will learn more from what you do than what you say. Meaning, how can you teach your children not to lie if, for example, you're the daddy, you come home and your wife asks you, "Oh, where were you?" So what do you say? "Oh, I was shopping for food, for groceries." But you forgot that your kid was with you and you stopped off at a liquor store to buy some beer and some cigarettes, and you shoved them in the car when you were standing outside smoking them and drinking, and then you get back in the car, your kid smells it, your kid knows everything, and you come into the house and you tell your wife, "Oh, I was at Walgreens, or I was at Publix buying food." Your kid might not say anything, but your kid knows. Your actions mean so much more. We're all guilty of this, or many are guilty of this, of driving too fast, driving, looking at your phones. How do you think your child, when they're 15 and 16, are going to drive properly if all they grew up at for the first 16 years of their life with daddy or mommy looking at their phone, and daddy or mommy eating or drinking something when they're driving, not looking at the street, driving too fast, swaying between lanes? How do you think they're going to be as drivers? "You better not drive fast. You better look when you turn." Dad, for over a decade I've seen you do otherwise. It's so important. It's hilarious but sad at the same time. You know, your kids are going to come home with homework and they're going to need to do it. They might need your help. How do you treat the homework? Do you say, "Ugh, more homework, ugh, we got to do it"? Or do you inspire them to want to do it? Do you inspire your children to learn, or do you let it be a burden? It is a burden. Homework is a burden to all parents. Homework is harder for parents than children most of the time. But it's all in the way we try to activate and inspire the child to want to do it. How are you going to want your child to ever sit down and read Tehillim or learn some Torah or go to a class if you don't go? Or if you are doing it and they don't see it? There's a story of a Holocaust survivor who became one of the most anti-Jews possible. And the reason was not because his parents didn't teach him right, or his parents were not following or observant enough. It was because they never saw their parents do anything too Jewish. They were trying to hide it from the German society. They always wore a hat, or they took off their kippah. They stuck their tzitzit in. They sat at regular restaurants with everyone else, depending on what they ate. They never saw their parents pray or learn Torah. All they knew was that at one corner of the house there's a small room that has full of books, and that's where daddy goes in every night. Now this is not simple. Goes in every night around 11 p.m. and comes out in the morning after a whole night of learning. Every single night. And that's a committed man. But his children were completely unaffiliated because they never saw, They never were involved. As parents, we have an obligation on Sukkot to involve your sons, involve your daughters to build the sukkah with you, to prepare the Seder table with you, to come to shul with you, to eat with you, to play with you, to involve them in Jewish activities. But how to teach them? By leading by example. If you come to synagogue and all you're doing is you open a book just like everyone else and you're not looking at the book, you're talking to this one, talking to that one, going to that one, walking over there to talk, going outside Kiddush club, non-stop everything but what you're supposed to be doing. What do you think your teenager's going to do? They might be smarter than you. They might not even come to synagogue because they think it's worthless. And then we ask, why is it impossible to bring my children and my grandchildren to synagogue? It's based on the way we act and we inspire them. And taking this back to what we said before, it's never too late. It's never too late. We always have another chance with ourselves, with our children, with our grandchildren, with anyone. But we need to show them a healthy example. We cannot go to the synagogue and run in late and rip off our tefillin and rush out quickly. Our children know. Our children sense it. You can't come back from the class. You walk in after the class and your wife or your husband asks you, so how was? It was okay. You know what? Maybe it was only okay. You got to say, it was amazing. It was the best ever. Because she knows that, and she either tells that to the children or your children hear that. And then they want to do it also. That is what the Torah is telling us. Tell your children and tell it to them again. Because the way to tell it to them is not by teaching. It's by leading by example. It's so easy to teach a child how to put bread together, although I can't bake. But I'm told it's easy to put bread, to put dough and flour together and take off some challah. It's pretty easy. But why do we do that? And what does that mean to you? How do you get your girls into doing that? How do you get your girls into dressing properly? It's up to you to dress properly. If you walk around half naked, so then they will also. But if they see you dressed properly, if they see you dressed like a queen, if they see you dressed dignified, they're going to understand something about that. You can't just say, well, when it's school time, your skirt needs to be below your knees, and if not, it doesn't matter. No, that confuses children. Children thrive on consistency. Children thrive, and listen to this, write this down or imprint it in your brains. Children thrive on their parents' consistency. Children are completely dependent on their children. If you are a mom, if you are a dad, and every day you're up at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, ready for the children, and you don't one day, whether your child will tell it to you or not, whatever age they are, they're worried. Okay, if mom has a cold, dad has a cold, they understand. But they need that consistency to be healthy, to grow up as healthy, productive, successful human beings. As healthy, productive, and successful Jews. They need the consistency of the observance, of the inspiration, of the ecstaticness that you have as their father and their mother for Torah, for God, for mitzvot, for prayer, for charity, for Shabbat, for kashrut, for everything that we have to do. Because if you're not going to give it to them, well, you're robbing them from it because no one else will. Not their teacher that you spend so much money at to send them to school. And not their neighbor. And sure not the friends that they pick up on the street. It's only going to be you. The responsibility of chinuch, of educating your children, is on you. It's not on the principal, it's not on the parent, it's not on the teachers, it's not on the tutor, it's you. Yes, to learn the information, we send them off to school, we send them off for tutors. That's the information. But the information is not the important part. It's the skill set on how to attain information, how to retain information, and how to want to act on that information. In the first chapter of Pirkei Avot, it says that the learning is not the main part. Ela hamaaseh. The doing is the most important part. And that's the gift we give to our children. They see when we wake up in the morning, we look out at the sky, as the Mikubalim say to do, and say Modeani. Or they see you plop out of bed, or how about this, even worse, lie down in bed for half an hour, or some who have time on their hands, an hour, and are doodling on their phone. They see it. Don't you know you need to do Modeani first? Don't you know you need to do Netilat Yadayim first? You're going to be running after a cup of water, spilling it all over the floor to wash your kids' hands. Why? Because they don't see you do it the first thing. If you do it the first, they'll understand it's a norm. How can a father ask their child to wear tzitzit katan, which sachakol is just a t-shirt? It's not the biggest, worst thing that came to Judaism. How do you want your son to wear tzitzit if you don't wear it? He won't. He won't. Now, I'm not saying everything you do, your children will do. But you are augmenting your chances profusely when you do it opposed to not. And I just gave a couple examples for tonight, but this works in every single thing in life. Whether it's Torah related, mitzvot related, interpersonal related, like we said, lying, getting angry, or being patient and holding oneself back. This is so important. Now look at the next question we had. We said, well, why is the Torah teaching us this lesson by less than 10% of Judaism? Kohanim. If there's 12 tribes, Kohanim come from Levi. And by the way, not all the tribe of Levi are Kohanim. There's also Moses' lineage, which are Leviim. So let's be nice and say 5% of Jews. Right? Out of all the Jews you know, out of 20 about are Kohen. So why is the Torah teaching us this lesson of leading by example, of teaching through inspiration by such a slim number of Jews? Is it only for the Kohen? Listen to this. This is absolutely amazing. Think of who has the most restrictive life growing up as a child. Is it a Christian boy, a Muslim boy, a Jewish boy, a pagan boy? Or what about a Kohen's son or a Kohen's daughter? Along with all of the Jewish restrictions, they also have Kohanim restrictions. That means that at certain times of the month, they need to make sure that they went to the mikveh so they could eat at home when the home is all in its holy aspect. Meaning, you know how at our houses, we have a couple sets of dishes. We have meat, dairy, Passover. So you have a minimum of 3 sets of dishes. Minimum. Okay? Some have Shabbat meat. Some that are very fancy. You have even dairy holidays for Shavuot. Whatever the case is, you have a minimum of 3 sets of dishes at home. In the time of the temple, there was another set of dishes. It was called the dishes of Hekdesh, meaning anything that came from the temple, any of the korbanot that came from the temple, had to be eaten on different set of plates which were kadosh. They got into no contact with anything impure at all. And now, a Kohen. Imagine a Kohen wants to go out and play baseball or soccer with the rest of his buddies. The father on his way out says, make sure you don't walk this way because this way is through a cemetery and you can't go there. And make sure you don't play with any creepy crawlers, dead or alive, because you can't, you're a Kohen. And the kid's getting bogged down. As Jews, we find ourselves in that situation today more than ever. If your child has other friends and those friends are doing things that you don't want your children to do, you don't approve of it, it's the parents', I don't want to say job, it's the parents' obligation to find a tactic to want to inspire them to be different and to be better. That was the greatest challenge of a Kohen. A Kohen and his wife had this challenge day in, day out on how to inspire their son and daughter to be different than not only the rest of the world, than the rest of the Jews. And us today, we have the same battle. that is in the world we live in. Whether your kids go to a Jewish school or not, whether they go to a very religious school or not, unfortunately there's temptation. Unfortunately there is not the best example all around them. At what point are we going to not approve of what they do? And what are we going to do about it? If you ground them, if you punish them, if you whack them, that's not going to get the message home to them. We need to find a way to get them on the plan. And that's through love, through communication, through proper example. The reason why our sages teach us that this lesson of chinuch, this lesson of raising and teaching one's children the proper way is specifically by a Kohen, because a Kohen had the hardest time to do it. And still it was incumbent upon them to raise to that occasion and do so. As Jews living today in the 21st century, we have that challenge. And you know what? If it's a challenge God gave us, it means we can succeed. We can push through. To some parents, putting your children in front of a screen for hours on end is the only alternative to sanity. For others, it is absolutely impossible to allow to do such a thing. But as parents, we need to try. If you put your children in front of a screen at ages 2 and 3 and 4 for hours on end, what's going to be from them? Oh, Rabbi, it's little Einstein. It's going to make him a genius. No! You know how your kids are going to be smart? By using their hands, by using their mouths, by using their minds, by getting out and playing sports, by building things, by breaking things, by interacting with other human beings, not only siblings, neighbors, and others. That's how you build normal, healthy children. Why is it all of a sudden that nowadays there are so many conditions and there are so many, I don't want to say the word vitamins, but there's so many vitamins and so many medications and hormones and steroids, all these crazy things they want to give to our children. Whose fault is it? Is it the doctor's fault? Or is it my fault? Stop blaming others. Start blaming yourself. Start understanding that the change has to come from you. And that change starts with not being lazy. Laziness kills any change. As Jews, we understand. And by the way, this Sunday, starting Saturday night, is a very opportune and special day for change, commitment to change, or to start a change. Why? What's happening this Sunday? Of course, it's a new week. It's actually Pesach Sheni. Pesach Sheni is the second Passover. It's the time where God said to Moses, anyone who was sick, anyone who was traveling, anyone who was impure, for whatever reason, and they couldn't bring the Pesach offering, the Paschal lamb, on Pesach, don't worry, 30 days later, we're going to give them a chance to repurify themselves and bring it. This year, it falls out on Motzei Shabbat and Sunday. This Sunday, which is, by the way, in our society, a great day of the week. It's a day where we just finished the holiest day of the week, and it's a day where most try to spend some, if not most of the day, with their children, with their spouses, with their family. Take an effort this week on Sunday and change something dramatically in your life for the good. But you're not going to change it by telling someone else to change. Okay, everyone, we're standing here. No, you go, you stand there. Okay, everyone, you know what? We're cutting down screen time. And then right away you're back on your phone. That doesn't work. Lead by example, do a true change, and Hashem will help with it. Hashem gives you a second chance. Give yourself a second chance. Give your children, give your spouse, give your neighbor, give your coworker, give your employee, your employer, give it all another chance. That is the concept of this Sunday. We learned this all from this week's Parashat. Hashem tells us, teach your kids by example. Hashem says He never will remove His Shekhinah from you, even if you're impure. Unless you completely shun Him out, then God unfortunately can turn His face on a person. Hashem could turn His face on the entire Jewish nation. It's happened before. But it's based on us. Are we looking for it? Are we looking for that second chance or not? If we avoid, just like a Kohen, if we avoid from getting impure over and over again, Hashem sees us, Hashem comes, even though we're still impure. This is the beauty of Teshuvah. This is the beauty of a Baal Teshuvah. Do you know why it's called a Baal Teshuvah? Why is it not called a Ben Teshuvah or a Bat Teshuvah? Why Baal Teshuvah? Very good. When a man marries a woman, according to the Torah, he acquires her. Oh, Rabbi, that sounds like a slave. That sounds horrible. No! You know what it means that he acquires her? He now assumes responsibility for her. He has to feed her. He has to clothe her. He has to give her everything she wants and she needs. This is incumbent upon every single husband. When a person is a Baal Teshuvah, he's really acquired that level of repentance and self-betterment. Hashem gives us a chance. Give yourself a chance. Give others a chance, and understand that as impure as you think you might be, as old as you think you might be, it's never too late. Remember Bessie, who was named Batya at 90 years old, and say, hey, I'm 30, I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm 89, I'm still not there. I could do it too. If you don't know Hebrew yet, you could still learn it. You know, I met people, they know how to speak fluent Hebrew, they cannot read Hebrew. They have an advantage. Sit down, a little patience, learn the Aleph Bet. You can learn it online, you can learn it with a tutor, you can learn it with a book. There's so many ways, there's so many tools God has gave us today in the 21st century. Pick it up and learn it. There's something you're interested in. There's something you don't know. Go and seek to learn it. That is the power of us as Jews. It's the will to want to learn. It's the will to want to be better. Take that trait that is embedded in our heritage and apply it to yourself and inspire your very own children. Thank you everyone for coming. If anyone has any questions,